Could you define translation, like when you say that it translates better,
Yeah.
what that means?
So translation is the most valuable concept anyone will ever learn. Literally. Imagine that you're speaking Japanese to me right now. And if I don't have the ability to internally translate it, meaning I don't understand your language, then I'm going to get knocked all over the place. Because I will feel your heart, I will feel what you're trying to express, and then I will feel what you're actually expressing, and then I will have to figure out in between. That's called translation. So the ability from light to translate into matter is a science. It's an actual thing, and it has to do with subspacing, or the space between matter and time and space. That subspace between time and space that helps to form matter or direct matter is part of that translation. So to translate time into space to create a different form of matter or a different capability is really just working with light itself, right? So we're taking light and we're translating it into frequencies and things like that. Basically, the all-you-can-eat buffet, in a nutshell, is created from quantum particles. But those quantum particles are programmed. So the only difference between me and this chair is the programming. That's literally it. If you look at energy as a construct, this chair is holding energy, and so is my body. So what's different? The programming. And the programming is created by the translation.
Okay, I'm wrapping my head around that one a little bit. So the quantum particles that make everything up, where is that our bodies translate it?
So from a really complicated perspective to a very 5-year-old simple perspective, we have these things that I call the invisible defenders, which the world calls microbes. Microbes are, depending on their level of education, translate light differently. So this is where it gets interesting, because not all microbes are made the same. You hear all these the new age world is like, oh, microbes are the secret to everything, and they're true, it's right, but they don't know what they're talking about yet. I sat down and had about a 2-hour discussion with Zach Bush, who's like one of the most brilliant people in microbes that exists in the world, right? And we were talking about the translation capability of microbes and like how they actually translate light. Most people don't know that gravity is actually light. So to reverse gravity, all you have to do is change the translation, which is levitation. So the idea is, how do we learn to translate differently? Well, what is the sun sharing? UV light, right? Rays coming in, light. So our bodies burn because they don't translate that sunlight properly. But why do they not translate that sunlight properly? And the answer is because we have mistranslations, which is bacteria that are not healthy for us. All the negative constructs are just mistranslated. So when you start to look at the world from a space of translation, everything changes, because you go, okay, so this range here is part of the quantum. It just has been divorced from this part of the quantum, which has caused it to be in a lower range, causing it to create harm. But if I add this range back to this equation, all of a sudden it's a seamless range, and now it's actually beneficial. So this is where basically all of my technology comes from, is the idea that there is nothing bad in this world, it's just mistranslated. So if that's true of energy, energy can't be bad, right? It's just energy. It's just potential. But our translation of that potential is what changes everything. So when you start to realize that, you start to look at that, and you look at that from a scientific perspective. I've had great conversations with people who have like many PhDs around the concept of translation, and by the end of it, they're usually like, I never thought of it like that. But yeah, that stacks up with every aspect of what I've said. My favorite concept is translation, because once you understand it, you can't ever see the world the same way again. Let's take trauma as a concept, right? Trauma is a mistranslated event, usually caused by a prior mistranslated event, meaning somebody hits you because they were hit. So it's the potential of energy continuing a cycle. But that cycle is just a mistranslation, so it's a downward cycle. And to break the cycle means to find translation again. Oh, I didn't realize that this person had been abused as a child. Now I can forgive them. Boom, translation. You've now used forgiveness as a translator of trauma, and the result is now you're in a positive range again. But that's the same concept of everything. It's the value of innocence, which is the first track from Elijah Ray, is to retranslate innocence back into our bodies so that we can actually look at the world from that innocent perspective, which is why that first session is life-changing for people, because they get a proper translation of innocence at a cellular memory level, and they're just like, whoa, I didn't realize I could have that. In fact, most people report having childhood memories come up and all kinds of other things because they're expanding into their proper translation again. The only reason that we're separate from God or source or whatever word you want to use is we don't translate properly because of density or lower ranges. So what is our purpose of life? Our purpose of life is to move forward and to translate the world around us, which is called being the change or whatever words you want to use on this planet. But ultimately, it's the same concept. It's translating reality as we see fit by moving forward. The problem is that we have so many things lying to us constantly on this planet that it's creating more mistranslations than it is actual translations. So this is one of the reasons why that bed is so magical, is because you get to lay in a translated field. And if you use the PNR, you get to lay in an even more translated field. And what actually occurs is all of your mistranslations come up to be resolved. And you have all the resources available to you because you're at an all-you-can-eat buffet. And it's like, hey, you need chicken right now. And your divine intelligence goes, oh, let's grab chicken. Ooh, you need peas. Okay. And for an entire hour, you're just laying in this potential field, getting everything you need to clean up the mistranslations in your field. It's incredible. It's revolutionary. And that's the magic of translation.